Hi, it's me, Umbra, the Winds Lodge Prefect at the Grey School of Wizardry, and here we are at the Ostara Conclave, and today our presentation is going to be, would you like to introduce it?
Ostara egg. What's that one?
Ostara egg coloring with natural ingredients. I know, it's my handwriting.
Sloppy cursive.
Yeah, they don't teach these kids cursive anymore, and okay, admittedly, my handwriting leaves a lot to be desired. So, if you have taken the wheel of your class, you would know, and if you haven't, you know now, that one of the suggested activities in that class for Ostara is that you can make your own egg dye from natural ingredients. And if you haven't taken that class, just Google it. This is it's a popular topic. A lot of people have posted different ingredients you can use and ways you can do this. So going through this, I realized we had some limitations on what we could do, because some of the ingredients it's produce. It requires going to the grocery store, which right now we're not encouraged to do unnecessarily, and also we don't want to waste food. I don't know if why are you guys laughing? Okay, where were we? Because we had to stop the video because some people had uncontrollable fits of laughter, and I don't even know what the joke was. So we were talking about grocery stores and produce, and obviously there are shortages, and for something like this that is a non-necessity, I don't want to take produce off the shelves, and I don't even know if it's available, but do the responsible thing. So I was thinking maybe I wouldn't do this video, but then I realized we have a lot of things on hand that are suggested or that we could just experiment with. And I didn't know how that would, play out. So you're going to be a part of this experiment with me because I don't know how any of this turned out. So it would be a great unveiling for all of us. But a lot of the ingredients that we have on hand are spices, and if you're like many people, you've had spices that have been sitting on your rack for like 10 years and you haven't used them. Unless, cooking is a passion of yours, but, a lot of people, like, I have spices that my mom gave me, like, that she got, like, as a wedding gift in 1970, so, just saying. So we had some things here that we could experiment with. And, let's see, so one of the things that I discovered is using the amount of spices or the amount of ingredients in a lot of these items. You need quite a bit of it, and that can get kind of expensive. Especially I think if you do use produce, if you strain it, you might need to use a lot more than, it's definitely a lot more expensive than just using food coloring. So why would you do this? Well, I think we know, in the practice of magic, all herbs and all plants have certain magical properties. And eggs themselves have magical properties. We have some classes in the school. Are you going to start laughing again? We have some classes. Get a hold of yourself. We have some classes in the school that deal with magical properties of eggs. I'm currently enrolled in the egg cleansing class taught by Dean Shadowfox, which has been really interesting, and I've been doing a lot of experimenting with that. So I was thinking, you could combine for certain magical workings, the different aspects of the different plants and herbs with the natural properties of the egg. So one of the things that you can do with eggs is you can bury them in your yard as like an offering to the nature spirits. Or one of the things I read, and I will provide the link where I read this, you can put egg wards in the four corners of your yard, because eggs can have a protective value too. And also, of course, the egg cleansing. Okay, so first let's talk about process. So typically you for coloring eggs, you would hard boil the eggs, use whatever method that you know of to do that. Everyone seems to have a different method of the perfect hard boiled egg. But I was thinking, depending on how you want to use your eggs, you actually might not want to hard boil them. Like, I was thinking of experimenting with some of my eggs for the egg cleansing purposes, and I had done one of the assignments for the class had to do with exploring why the egg is useful in this type of practice. And one of the things I had come across is the idea that the egg itself is this new living thing that can help draw the illness out of you. And I'm like, would boiling that living thing to the point that it's hard, I don't know if that, I don't know how that would affect the energy. And so I don't know that I would necessarily do that, but, certainly you can hard boil the eggs. So, let me look. There was also, when I was looking online, different methods of how you create the dye. A lot of them say, you put if you're using like a spice, you boil it, get it to a rolling boil. When it cools down to room temperature, you place your egg into it, you put it in the refrigerator for at least overnight. So this is not necessarily a fast process, but depending on what you're dyeing it with, it can be very fast. Like one of the ingredients that I used was wine. Well, that wine stained the egg very quickly. So the other thing, too, is for a lot of the ingredients, you have to add, a couple tablespoons of vinegar. And the reason for this is the vinegar, it's being acidic, it can help break down the shell of the egg a little bit so that the dye can stick. Now, like for using the wine has like natural acid, so I did not add vinegar to that. So let's look at some of the ingredients that I used. So one thing I had on hand, cumin. So let's look at our cumin egg. Ooh. So what do you think of that color? Kind of yellowish?
Tan?
Yeah, it's got a crack in it. But for comparison, this is an undyed egg. And one of the things I thought was interesting, now this egg, obviously I've hard boiled it, it's cracked. But I kind of wondered, if the spice permeates the egg and you eat it, because people do eat their dyed eggs. They're dyed with food coloring, and cumin is obviously it's edible. I wondered if the egg itself would taste like cumin, but considering how much I had to use to get it to dye your eggs, if you want eggs that are tasted like cumin, the more efficient, the more cheap.
Human?
Cumin.
Wait, did you actually think it was?
No.
I kept hearing human.
If you want eggs that taste like cumin or any of the other ingredients, the cheaper and more efficient way to do it is to cook your egg and sprinkle it on it. So that's what I would recommend that you do. So what else do we have? Coffee. We use coffee. We have plenty of coffee. I know coffee is a precious commodity if you drink as much of it as I do. But, we tend to shop in bulk once or twice a month, so we have plenty of coffee on hand. So I wasn't too concerned about using this, and it didn't take even a full cup of it, so I was able to drink the rest. But, let's see. Coffee egg.
Yeah, it's such a pretty color.
It's so pretty. It's like, actually, if you want brown eggs, you could probably just buy brown eggs. So the wine. Now, normally I probably would have used grape juice, but as I said, I was just using things we had on hand. Tend to have quite a bit of wine on hand because we get it as a gift for, different holidays, and I'm really not a big drinker. But it was kind of interesting because I had the excuse to open a bottle of wine. I did not let it go to waste, which... no judgment here. If you choose to imbibe, please do so responsibly and adhere to the age restrictions in your area. So this is where I have to say to the YouTube gods, yes, this video is not created for the under 13 crowd. And if you are not a YouTube content provider, maybe you don't realize this. I have to check that box off every single time I upload one of these to say this is not for under 13. So what else do we have? Chili powder. This is one of the eggs that I hard boiled. This is the chili powder. So also kind of brown. Do you think it's about the same color brown as the coffee?
Almost. It's a
I
little
would
lighter.
say that the coffee egg was cheaper to color than the chili powder egg. Although chili powder really isn't that expensive. This one, I was just kind of looking around for, what do we have on hand? What could we use? I didn't find this on any of the websites. This is an apricot brandy egg. There's not a lot of color to it. I guess, it's kind of a light, would you say orange or tan?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it smells really good. So no, I did not drink the rest of the apricot brandy. Like I said, I'm not a big drinker. I think we only have this on hand because we cook with it sometimes. And this egg, this is the one I was actually most intrigued with, and I will get into why shortly. This is turmeric egg. Now, turmeric dyes things very easily. It will stain your hands. It will stain anything it comes in contact with. So, you know, be careful that you know, if you're wearing something nice that you don't want to get turmeric stain on it, you know, be very careful. So, I actually have 2 eggs in here because I want to do some work, an additional work with the turmeric egg. But I want to talk about some of the properties that these ingredients have. So, the cumin egg. Do you remember which one was the cumin egg? I think it was this one.
Yeah.
So, cumin is good for protection. So, again, if we're going back to the magical use of eggs and putting them in the 4 corners of your property, maybe you would use the cumin egg. Chili powder egg. You remember which one? I can probably tell by smelling them. This is the chili powder egg. You want to smell it? Yeah, okay. This is for hex breaking. So, again, maybe in some, you know, protective type of magic, you could use, this is your hex breaking egg. Okay, so with a coffee egg, the first thing that came to mind when I decided to do the coffee egg was that if you understand the concept of sympathetic magic, and it's this idea that, you know, an object or an ingredient will, you know, affect something magically in, you know, a way that is, like, you know, has the same characteristic of that item, that ingredient. So when I think of coffee, I think that's something that gives you a lot of energy. So I would just personally, intuitively associate coffee with, you know, greater energy. But I did look it up. And what I found was very interesting, very humorous, I thought, especially going along with this idea of sympathetic magic. One of the things that coffee is said to help with is it dispels nightmares. Well, logically, if you drink enough coffee, you're not sleeping at night, so yeah, it probably will dispel nightmares because you're not going to sleep. The other thing that coffee is associated with is overcoming internal blockages. And if you drink enough coffee, I think you know what I mean by that. So...
Oh,
next.
what does that mean?
What does that mean? It means if you are internally blocked, it can unblock you.
Like blocked arteries?
No. It's not what I had in mind.
I'm so confused.
I think coffee's an antioxidant. I'll have to check on that. No, I had other blockages in mind.
Like what? Mental?
I mean, it has a laxative effect if you drink enough of it. So, okay, my red wine egg. As red wine, it's are grapes. Grapes are associated with fertilities and mental powers, and also garden magic, which is, you know, if you are burying that egg in your yard to as an offering for this nature spirits, the spirits of the land, to help with fertility in your garden. But fertility in general, if you think of the egg is already associated with fertility. So if you are doing any kind of magic with fertility as an intention, you know, some of these combinations, you know, the fertility associations with your ingredient that you are using as a dye, and the egg, you know, that's something you can compound the power of the power of the magic. Trying to think where we are. We have the apricot brandy. Did I refer to it as apricot brandy before, or peach brandy? I don't remember.
I thought you apricot. Yeah,
it is apricot because they tend to. I don't know. I sometimes do refer to peach. It is not peach. It is
Hold
apricot.
on. Okay. Sorry, I was having a blurry problem.
So yeah, the apricots are associated with love, platonic love, friendship. You know, attracting that. If it were peaches are associated with fertility. So again, the fertility and the egg together. So before we get to my turmeric egg, which is the one I'm really excited about, Some of the other ingredients that are suggested if you should use blackberries are associated with healing, and again, eggs are used in cleanses, in healing cleanses. So you might, it might augment that kind of working. Cabbage, another one associated with fertility, profit, good luck. Onions can be used for prosperity and protection. So, my turmeric egg. So this is the one I decided not to hard boil. And, I already explained the reason for that. But one of the things, I don't know, I might do a separate video, or I might just present this at the conclave. I did an essay for the egg cleansing class on why eggs are used for this kind of work, them being kind of porous and, drawing out the illness from you. Well, turmeric it's not just a magical property, but an actual property of turmeric is that it is an anti-inflammatory, and it is often used in a poultice, which is, it's like a poultice is like a number of herbs put together, like you might put them on a cloth, or I've seen on a potato, and you put them on, an area of your skin to draw inflammation out. And if you want to, like, even Google that, different poultices, there's a lot out there. And as it turns out, there is an illness going around that has, fevers, inflammation. You might want to Google that. And I do want to just, make sure these things are great to do for healing purposes. This should always be done in conjunction with, not instead of, established medical practices. We do believe in this school that science is a thing, medical science is, it is very important to listen to your doctor's advice, listen, to what your health department is saying. So, if you can take Tylenol for a fever, you should do that, but you can do this in addition to that. Are you coughing?
The log went down the wrong pipe.
All right. So anyway, I'm taking Dean Shadowfox's class, and I have been doing a lot of experimenting. I have not turned in my practicum papers for like the egg cleansing that I did on myself, and I'm supposed to practice on other people, and unfortunately none of the other people in my house want me to do that. I don't know why. But, so I had done, to get a little off topic, not way off topic, I was doing this 9-day egg cleanse, and I got to day 7, I went to get my 9th day egg, and somebody had eaten it. So I feel like you guys owe me one with this egg cleansing thing.
You should have labeled them.
Yeah, I've done this whole egg cleansing thing. Like, my first attempt at it, had to be kind of aborted because my egg, it wasn't cracked, but sitting on my altar, it all of a sudden oozed this thick, snotty slime, and I was like in a panic. Like, what does this mean? So I was, instantly in contact with Dean Shadowfox. And one of the things, first he said, don't panic, but he said you might want to just attempt an egg divination. So I was just kind of looking up online how to do that. Well, if you go on YouTube, a lot of the stuff that I found, it's all very like, well, if this happens, it means you're cursed. And if this happens, it means you're cursed by more than one person. And if this happens, it means somebody gave you the evil eye. And I'm like, okay, what is the outcome that isn't bad? So it's a little hard finding something like that. But I did find on a few sites that they recommend egg scrying. So, looking into it and seeing, what do you see and how would you interpret that? So that egg that had gone bad, I don't know why, on my altar, I decided that I cracked it into a jar of water, and what immediately popped up was this face with this pointy ears. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's Batman, but I didn't have a good feeling about it, so I decided, okay, how do I dispose of this? Well, I've read a number of books that on protective magic, and they say, like, I was reading one of the books by Robin Artisson I read. It was Letters from the Devil's Forest. Now, he gives his own methodology for egg cleansing. I recommend all of his books. If you can get your hands on them, that's awesome. But he talks about discarding that egg. Now, he didn't do a divination in his instructions, but he says to wrap the egg up, to bind it, so that whatever the nastiness in that egg doesn't escape. And then he says, you go and you bury it, some distance from your house, and you return a different direction than you came, and not looking back. And those themes of the returning a different direction than you came, the not looking back, also another, in a number of traditions, discarding something at the crossroads because it won't know how to make its way back. So combining those ideas, I took my divination egg and with Batman and drove a little bit of ways away from my house, dumped it at a crossroads, and yes, I returned a different direction and didn't come back. And that maybe it's overkill, but, not taking a chance. These are all, established practices with protective magic. Alright, so finishing off on getting back to this egg cleansing, I do want to experiment more with the turmeric egg. I don't know that I will be able to do 9-day egg cleansing because, again, we want to limit the amount of times that we go to the grocery store. Like I said, these natural and magical spiritual methods of healing are great, but you don't want to violate medical advice, legal advice. If you can stay away from the stores, please do. And you also don't want to waste produce. Now, as it turns out, because we buy in bulk, we do have a lot of eggs on hand. I have my daughter, she's a pastry arts major at the technical school, so we did happen to have plenty of eggs, and none of these are going to waste. But if I do the egg cleanse, it's probably going to be a single day egg cleanse. So, but this is, one of the things that we can do with magic. Once we know the principles behind it, we can get a little bit creative. We can experiment a little bit. And if you do experiment, make sure you journal about it. Write down everything that you did so that you can go back and try to determine, did that work? Did that not work? What might I change? So yeah, probably not going to waste 9 days worth of eggs. Not saying it is a waste, but right now, where there's food shortages, we don't want to take additional trips to the grocery store. So, try to conserve where you can. Like I said, get creative. And I'm hoping that one of the other videos that I will bring to you is a spell. It's a creative spell that I've developed, so hopefully that will be another video. We're going to do that outside, so only one of my girls will accompany me outside to do that, if we should do that, because just sign of the times, as it turns out, one of them has been quarantined. She's not showing symptoms of illness, but she is not allowed to leave the house. I will again reiterate, follow any instructions that you have been given in this difficult, trying time. So stay safe, be well, and we wish you a
Very blessed be.